Welcome to Refused Flank, a wargaming podcast exploring the intersection of competitive excellence and narrative storytelling potential.
Are we recording?
We are.
Okay. Welcome to Refused Flank. I'm Grant.
I'm Cam.
And we're going to talk about the Lizardmen for Warhammer Fantasy Battles 6th edition, kind of give our take on it as a narrative force and what it does there, but also the competitive nature and how you can play it well.
Yeah, and I think we're going to start then with some narrative lore stuff. As always, the 6th edition Army books are just packed with all sorts of interesting lore. I think there is, especially in this one, some fascinating details about the origins of the old world and how the Lizardmen were a part of that. It's a little wild. It's basically genocide and eugenics is the start of the old world. Some alien species called the Old Ones, bringing the Slan and then developing the old world along whatever their plan is. It almost feels like the Lizardmen are the ultimate good guys because they're the ones that want to fight chaos and defeat chaos, but I guess it just depends on what you think about the old ones, whether they're actually good or not. But also the fact that genocide and eugenics was part of the plan is not so great.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely room for interpretation.
Some gray there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the whole book has a really interesting grim kind of futility associated with it because the old ones are gone, the Slan are all dying out, they're the only ones who have any idea what the old ones were trying to do. But they're just guessing, they're meditating for years at a time and then saying one word and then the
skinks
are like, oh, what
write
did that
it
mean?
down. What did he say?
So I think it's really fascinating just to think of that from a lore perspective. I think it creates a lot of interesting ideas for a campaign for Lizardmen. Obviously, especially in something like Warhammer Fantasy role-playing, but even in the battle game, when you're thinking about, okay, what does my army think the old one's plan was, and how are we going to carry that out? And then you can have all sorts of crazy ideas about why you're showing up anywhere else in the old world, because it was part of the old one's plan for you to do that.
Right.
Based off of some cryptic thing that the Slan said one time.
Sure.
So I think that's cool. I think there's also, they have some hints at things that there's still these teleportation gates throughout the old world that they can go through to get places, which helps make them a little more maneuverable when otherwise they would seem a little isolated.
Gives them a reason to fight in the old world or the Southlands. There are Lizardmen there, but they're supposedly slightly different or whatever, and it definitely provides that. I love the whole idea of the Slan generations too. They're these limited numbers. There's only a finite amount. They don't reproduce. There was 5 spawnings, and it's like all the first gens are dead. Obviously Lord Croak is mummified,
kind of alive,
still kind of influencing things, but it's like the second gen are these guys who are so ancient. There's the one dude who's Mazamundi, who's a second gen, I believe, and is still the active one, so to speak. And he's doing crazy stuff, moving mountains and things like that. But I love that it allows you to make these Slan characters that aren't named, but still feel like they have like a lot of effect on the story. Because it's like, this is one of maybe a few hundred.
Yeah. And that's it.
Like, I made up
if
mine.
He dies.
Right.
He's not coming back.
It's Lord Quex was mine when we finished our campaign, and he just ended up being a 5th gen because, frankly, I didn't want to spend the points upgrading him because, good golly, those can get expensive. But you could do so much with him or them, I should say, and they're so cool. They're unique. What do you think about the look of this army? We kind of talked about that with Empire. They changed a lot from 5th to 6th. If you've seen the 5th Ed Saurus, they're like really, for lack of a better word, they're really lizardy.
Yes.
And they became almost
more dinosaur-y.
Dragon dinosaurs. What do you like better? They obviously stuck with the dragon dinosaurs.
Yeah, I think honestly for me it's one of those things where this is what I encountered first, so it kind of stuck as what it's meant to be. But I do like some of the older models. They do have some of that old school charm to them.
Sure. I think they're an army that I painted mine kind of an ice blue skin, not quite as deep blue turquoise as maybe the Army book would portray them, but I kind of followed that scheme for sure. But I think you could go anywhere with this. I think the models, the first party ones, not even counting all the crazy 3D prints that exist now, you could go really bright, ostentatious colors, kind of like Empire. They're my favorite army that I've painted.
Nice.
They're really fun to paint. And I like that I get to paint with big bright colors, but then also feel like my models are intimidating. Like they're kind of like this ice baby blue.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, they're gonna bite your head off. And I love the look. They just, at least the first party models, do a good job of kind of portraying their menace, their anger, the primalness of it all. I love the Slan model from this era, which is the one I have. The new one's good too, but he's just so big.
Yeah.
The old school one is cool too. Has a lot of character. He's a little hokey for me. And again, kind of like you, I think this is the first type of lizardmen that I saw. So it's like that's the right ones, right? But love a lot of the models that you can even get to this day for them. And I think they hold up.
They really do
well.
Yeah, and I think the Army has such a interesting variety of different types of units in it, despite how few are really in the book.
Yeah.
But they still look so cohesive on the table. And it just, I do like the look of a full Lizardmen army arrayed. I love the contrast between the really solid regimented blocks of Saurus, but then also the looser formations of the Skinks and the flying pterodons and things. It just has a really cool look to it.
Right, and it's like all these different, almost it feels like different species kind of working together. You know, for this greater whole, and it really cool effect on the board just when you're deploying.
Yeah, and to that end, I think again with like the narrative stuff in the book, it's really interesting how they describe Lizardmen society and that the Saurus were bred only for war. They're like kept in the barracks underground until it's wartime, whereas the Skinks are like the normal society, people running around doing stuff throughout normal peace times and whatnot.
Sure.
So it's just really interesting to think about that and how it all kind of comes together. But it has that sort of caste system feel almost, where each thing has a very specific...
The dumb brutes who just do all the physical labor. They're building the pyramids. The Skinks are the scribes, and they're probably tending to the spawning pools.
Exactly,
and maybe growing food. I don't know. And then the Saurus are the guards. They can talk, but they don't talk a lot. And it's limited. And they understand warfare on like a DNA level, like they're bred for it, like this is what they do, and I think that's really cool. They have the special rule, we'll jump into those. They have predatory fighter, which in later editions gets really awesome. 6th it's pretty tame, but 6th is a pretty tame edition
overall.
And it's basically just an excuse for them to have 2 attacks base, which is really good. They don't get it in supporting attacks, so if they have spears, which is an option for the Saurus warriors, they don't get 2 attacks in the rear ranks, which is kind of a balance thing. Later editions changed that to be like, if you roll 6s to hit or whatever, you get more attacks.
Oh, I see.
So it was just a force multiplier kind of thing, and it was cool to represent their savagery or whatever, and that they're not just fighting with their sword.
They're also just
they're gonna bite
tearing you apart,
and scratch you. They have claws and sharp fangs and tangs. So like everything around them, their whole body is a weapon. Along with that, they have cold-blooded, which I think is, for me, the most elegant army-wide special rule in 6th. It is so easy to read, it's so easy to understand, and yet it's so powerful. Now, you could design a lot of overpowered rules that are probably pretty simple, but it suits the army.
It feels very thematic.
Very thematic. And again, if you don't know what it is, it's you roll 3 dice, drop the highest for leadership checks for everything, which is just
super
amazing. It takes things like Skinks who are leadership 5 and makes them feel like they're 7. It takes the Saurus who are 8 and make them feel like they're 10. And then Temple Guard and stuff that are stubborn. It's just like, man, they're
almost never gonna fail.
They're like unbreakable but not. But,
and I think for that reason, it's a really good starter army because it's a little more forgiving on some of those potentially frustrating aspects of 6th edition. Because that feeling of having a unit just break and get run down early in the game can feel really bad, and that's just less likely to happen with Lizardmen.
For sure. I want to mirror that. This was my first force. Yours was Empire, and I think as we've come away from it, we think Empire is probably one of the harder factions to start with if you've never played fantasy before. And I think Lizardmen, 100%. I think they might be the best army because they follow all the core rules. Somebody might say undead because they don't run, or run at all, and they cause fear, and they have a lot of bonuses. But I don't even think you're learning the core game at that point because you're breaking so many of the rules. They operate completely differently. Lizardmen are playing the same game. It's just they have a huge benefit and bonus in that more random aspect that could be frustrating.
Yeah. And just so many good units. I think almost every unit in the book is good, and it's just a smorgasbord of choice of how you want to play the army.
I agree. There's really, I mean, I've played them a lot at this point. And they have some stuff that isn't as good, but they've got some absolute bangers in the list that are tremendous. I think you could almost take anything in different orders. I think you want to have a guiding principle for sure, but the world's your oyster, and that leads into, I guess, one thing that's really cool about them that I want to get into before we get into the army list entries is the spawnings, which is unique to 6th edition, where you can take these special spawnings on characters or Saurus, just normal Saurus, I believe. You can't take them on Temple Guard, which is one of my things I wish you could do.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I really don't like that, frankly, but it is what it is. But they can, at least that's the way I read it. Correct me if I'm wrong, listeners. I hope I'm wrong, but the way I read it, it's Saurus warriors can take spawnings, and it's these things that you can add to the unit or a character, and it changes the unit from being core to special, or if you take 2 of them to rare.
I think they do, because Temple Guard and Cold One Riders are under the large heading Saurus Warriors.
Okay, well, let me know, listeners, what you guys think, because I've been assuming my whole life, which is, I guess, only a few years that we've been playing this game, that you can only give it to the base Saurus Warriors. So I hope that's the case, because that actually changes a lot, in my opinion. So, but we'll see when we get to it. But I've been playing them that way. And essentially, it just lets you take a book we kind of mentioned. There's only 10 choices in here that aren't characters, which is pretty small, even for 6th ed, which really stripped down a lot of choices in many books. It gives you a lot of customization within that. So you could have a Saurus unit that's just got better armor, and you could have one that's even more attacks on the charge, or hey, this one moves through rough terrain and has better initiative or whatever.
And that level of customization is just so fun to make your army feel like yours, and it gives you, they even in the book suggest different paint schemes to make minor alterations, like just painting their scales a different color, but leaving their skin the same, just to represent different ones of the spawnings.
Yeah, and I know I did, a lot of my Saurus have like little red dots on their heads or whatever, and that's because I was, at the time, I'm like, I want to do Sotek a lot, because I think that stands out as the spawning, because that's the +1 attack on the charge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to do Sotek, and Sotek's color is red. Right, so it's like, I want to incorporate that a little bit.
Yeah, it's cool. It feels kind of like the Warriors of Chaos March a little bit, where there's like a different cost for character versus unit, but it gives a buff, and you can kind of decide and customize however you like.
Yeah, so a really cool system. I really like it. I think it's reasonably well costed too. Some of the ones that are obviously not as useful are much cheaper than the ones like, again, Sotek, which are like 30 points a unit. So can get a little expensive there, but you usually get your bang for your buck. And with that,
it does bump them up to, I think, special or rare choices, depending if you take 1 or 2. So that I can sometimes throw a wrench into the army
for sure
organization, which you might not expect.
Definitely. And I think that's good, because again, there's just not that many choices. So if you're like, we'll get to it. For some reason, you're like, I don't want to take a Stegodon or Salamanders. I'll just take a really cool kitted out Saurus Warrior unit. And maybe that makes sense narratively in your army or in a campaign or whatever. Maybe you've had a Saurus Warrior unit do really well, and now he's been blessed by, I don't know, Sotek or whatever. I'm just going to keep saying him because this is the name that comes up. But and that might make sense. But with that, let's jump into the units, unless you have anything final to say about any of the kind of army-wide stuff.
I have one more thing to say about the narrative that I thought was fascinating. There's so many random tidbits in this book, like the existence of the vampire coasts, and the vampires have settled Lustria, and they are operating there.
It's
so
like
what vampire pirates.
A ship just crashed there, and everybody died except for one guy who was a vampire and just started rezzing everyone.
So that's amazing, and obviously that's like people have taken and run with that, and they're like, one's vampire coast, so you could like do a whole themed army of vampire counts with that, which is cool. There's hints about an underwater Atlantis style faction from a sunken city that it says fell into the ocean from the Lizardmen and has now been repopulated by an underwater people. And that's all it says. So, whoa, what's that about?
Age of Sigmar fish elves.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's where they got that from.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just tons of pirates in general. There's all these pirate coves and things happening there. Just the idea that the old world has started trying to colonize.
Skeggi, is it? The Norskin colony?
Yeah, the Norse people came and founded a colony as well.
Yeah.
So there's just so many little hooks for narrative flair in there, even for other armies, which is just so interesting being in the Lizardmen book that you still get so much more random facets of old world knowledge out of this book that you could apply to different factions as well. So anyways.
Worth noting too on that note, the Lustria book, if you can get it, is a great companion for this. There's some cool stuff in there that's just lore-wise and really, I mean, obviously, it's Lustria. It's where they're from. It's got a lot of
cool rules you can apply to scenarios.
And worth doing, and you can usually find it, in my experience, pretty cheap even now. So worth looking for. But with that, are you ready for the unit
let's jump into units.
Let's start with the big, the bad, the ugly, the slan. This dude is 325 points base for a level 4 wizard. Who's 5th gen, which we can get into the generations here maybe. He has a 100-point limit. He comes with a 4-up ward. He's got all these weird rules. He can use line of sight from skink priests. He can hide in a unit and still cast magic missiles. He's got a lot going on. He's leadership 9. He's got 6 wounds, tough 5. I mean, he's expensive.
But you get a lot for it.
But you get a lot. And he's got a +1 to cast and dispel. So he's pretty nutty. Really, I think he's perfect. Oh, and he can be a BSB. He's a lord who can be your BSB, which is fantastic because he pairs so well with the Temple Guard, which is really where you want them. He's awesome. I don't know what I can say enough about him. He can take any lore. If you want to pump him up, you can make this guy cost a quarter of your army or more. It's at a certain point, I think it's not worth it if you're trying to win, frankly. If you're trying, for me, and what I've been doing with the few times I've been using him, is I leave him 5th gen. I don't think the miscast table is too punishing in this edition. It is bad sometimes, but if you take
6 wounds,
6 wounds, a lot of them are just you take a hit. 4th gen, you basically just ignore miscasts, but that costs 40 points. So for me, you can definitely do it if you just never want to miscast ever, and you've got a lot of points for some reason.
Yeah.
But for me,
it's nice to have the option.
It's nice to have the option. 3rd gen, you take up another hero slot at that point, and you gain the Drain magic spell if you just want the opponent to have no fun.
Yeah.
And then 2nd gen, you just get like free dice and to every cast, which is absurd.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah.
But that costs 135 points to do that, which is pretty crazy. It is incredibly expensive. 135 plus 325, we're talking 450 before magic items.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and before the BSB cost, which I think if you're taking them, you're taking the BSB.
Even some other armies characters on monsters don't come up to that amount. So.
Yes, like a Elector Count on a Griffin is cheaper than him base.
Yeah.
Probably even if once you give him armor and stuff, he's cheaper. Now, he's I think he's the best wizard in the game. He gets to pick his lores per spell.
Absolutely.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, so they can dominate the magic phase if they want to, and I think that's one of the key things with this army is like if you go with the Slan, that's what you're doing. You're going to dominate the magic phase. And we can talk about that at some point, perhaps about when we're talking about building an actual army list with these.
Right.
But that's something to keep in mind if you're playing against them, is it's almost not worth taking any wizards if you're not going to like go all in against them. Because if you have 1 or 2 level 1 or 2 wizards, you're never going to get a spell off, and you will maybe block 1 spell of theirs.
Yeah.
So
they can definitely put you behind the 8 ball. The fact that he's getting a +1 to dispel too. He's just so good. I agree with you 100%. I think he's actually pretty fair though. He's so expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
You take him. This is an investment because you're going to put him in a unit because he's got all these rules about it, and you want to keep him safe. Sure, he's got a 4-up ward, but you want to keep him safe.
And that's where I don't think it's...
He's going to cost a quarter of your army minimum.
Yeah, and I don't think that he's...
More likely more than that.
I don't think he's overpowered for his cost by any means.
Yeah.
I just think if you aren't something like High Elves that really can go toe-to-toe with him on Magic, it might be worth just investing your points in other stuff and just taking the hits.
No, I agree. Yeah, you're gonna they can do so much.
Yeah.
I have only good things to say. I think it fits the lore. I think everything we kind of said in the lore piece fits them. They've actually, this is one of the cases where I think the rules actually lived up to the lore hype, because these are the wizards.
They're the ones that all the other magic literally came from. They taught the high elves, the high elves taught the humans.
So you're like, these are the bad boys. They're frog people. It's a little weird, but man, oh man, do they live up to it. And frankly, I love the look of them too.
They look
love
awesome.
The model.
So cool.
Just perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it is interesting that it's not the only way to play Lizardmen. So you can absolutely make a very viable army using the Scarvet or the Old Blood instead at different point levels.
Yeah.
And so the Slann, obviously super amazing at magic. But if you don't want to do that and you want to just play a more melee-oriented list or a more, balanced list with some magic and some fighty, there's those options too.
Yeah. I think a lot of people get into the army because of him. Mm-hmm. They see him, and it's almost worth doing. And we're spending a lot of time on the Slann, but I think he's on the cover of the book. Yeah. He's front and center. This is the Slann army. But going again, the other thing that could have been on the cover, if I'm honest, is the Old Blood on a Carnosaur. So
also iconic.
For cool factor, I think he might. Oh man, I love the Slann, but I love the Carnosaur. I even like the new model. I know it's a little big if you're playing 6 rules as written, but I don't think there's any big issue using a chariot base. That's what I do. Yeah. It's really only a negative on yourself. So whatever. Super cool unit. What's good about the Old Blood is he's 5 attacks for a Lord. Most Lords are on 4 attacks.
Right.
And that's kind of going back to the Lizardmen just have more attacks than everybody else. He's initiative 3, which is notable because everything else that's fighting in this book is really bad initiative. Weapon skill 6, which is average for a Lord, but he's strength and toughness 5. There's a lot of Lords in the game. There's still only strength 4, toughness 4. Yep. Or if you're an elf, toughness 3.
Yeah.
So strength and toughness 5 is really phenomenal. 3 wounds.
He can really be a combat beast.
Easy to get him a 1-up save too. You're gonna have to probably pull into some special spawnings and maybe a magic
Quetzal gives
stuff.
you the +1 scaly skin.
So you give him. He comes with a 5-up just built in. He's 145 points, but you're going to give him light armor. You can give him a shield. That already's at a 3-up, 2-up in close combat. So that's before anything. Yeah. Right. Just with a hand weapon and a shield. And light armor. So that's great. He's really customizable. You mentioned the spawnings earlier, kind of like marks. It's like being able to mark multiple times to this guy.
Completely customize it too. It's not like you choose and you just get these and that's it.
Yeah, there's one that gives dispel dice. So if you're like, I don't want to do any magic, you take an Old Blood and some Scarvets and just give them dispel extra dice and maybe you're okay, or at least a little better than you would have otherwise. And that's cheaper than taking priests, especially if you want to have a bunch of these guys.
Right.
And they're not that actually expensive. The Old Blood at 145, that's expensive-ish for a combat lord, but not outrageous.
Yeah.
He's not as much.
I think reasonable.
Nearly as much as a Chaos Lord. Now, weapon skill 6 is average. You might say that's his flaw, that and initiative, but
yeah, initiative doesn't come up that
Initiative doesn't come up that much. If you're going to have a bad stat in 6th edition, it's initiative, because charging first just doesn't care.
Yeah.
So really, the Lizardmen in 6th really have their weakness mitigated and their strengths exacerbated in that way. What do you think of the Carnosaur? I brought it once and he had a good game, but he does take up a hero slot.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think if you want to play a more reliable army, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But if you really want to just make that kind of alpha striking hero, it can be really fun. It can be really effective.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a super cool model.
Right.
But maybe it's again attacks. Yeah. Maybe it's again just one of those like 3,000 point game options where you're more likely to, where it doesn't feel like you're putting all your eggs in that basket, because you could then be bringing a second lord at that point.
It's worth noting that he's only leadership 8, which is the same as the Source Warriors are base.
Right.
So he
doesn't need to be around.
He doesn't need to be around. If you want to throw him out as a missile, he can be the missile.
Yeah, which is a big benefit over something like the Empire Elector Count on a Griffin, who really does need to stay with the line infantry.
Right. So you can do so much with him. I think he's pretty kid-outable with most stuff. Generally, I go pretty defensive with my lords, generally speaking. I go kid him out maybe a little more than you do generally, but really good. I think he's perfect. I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, I think the Scarvet's essentially the same song, second verse, just the fact that they can get the BSB, which that plus cold-blooded just makes for a very resilient
I do want to point out one thing, though, and maybe I should have saved this for the magic item stuff, but Charm of the Jaguar Warrior.
Remind me what that one does?
That makes him basically, I believe it's movement 9 if he's on foot. And you give him that and a great weapon. That's strength 7. That's breaking chariots.
True.
You can do the charge out of a unit 18 inches or whatever and just maul a chariot out of nowhere. You can do some cute stuff with him. There's some cute stuff with the Scarvet.
Yeah.
And he's 4 attacks for a hero, which again, I just want to say.
Yeah, hero level.
Heroes
crazy.
don't get 4 attacks. Heroes get 3. And you're like, oh, it's only 1 more. That's 33% more.
That's a big deal.
It's a lot more. And again, you don't need his leadership. He's leadership 8. Your Saurus Warriors are 8. You don't have to have him nearby.
Disposable.
So in a sub 2K game, he can be your general, but you don't need him nearby unless I guess your skinks are under fire, which we'll get into maybe. But yeah, really good. You can get him a 1-up save too pretty easily.
Yeah.
Only good things about the Scarvet. Skink Chief. This is, I think, one of the few choices in the book that I'm not in love with.
Yeah, it's just kind of mediocre. Doesn't really fill a role that something else doesn't fill better.
He's kind of I've brought him a lot actually because I like him from a lore perspective. I like skinks. Skinks are kind of skinks are just cool. I love that they're a unit. There's not enough units in the game that are toughness 2. There's a lot of toughness 3 and a lot of toughness 4. I wish there was more things that were toughness 2, and I know that would probably affect costs on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I like that they have this like low toughness as a
it fills
as
out
a
the
negative.
design space a little bit. Yeah.
Right, and I wish they did that a little bit more. But like he's tough 3, so he's a hero, which is cool. But average for pretty much everything in the game. Strength 4 is good, but the problem with the Chief is that he's ballistic skill 4 for me, which is above average. But a captain, an Empire captain, which we reviewed last time, is ballistic skill 5. And this Chief costs more than the captain. He's leadership 6. Now he's cold-blooded, but
still, yeah.
I'd almost rather have 8, honestly, just base than 6 cold-blooded. It's close. I'm sure somebody could math that out. It's probably pretty close, but my feeling is I'd rather have 8 base. Initiative 5 is good. He's movement 6, which is excellent. You can make him kind of shooty, fighty. And he's got an item that I'm going to bring up here again. That's because it's really only for him, the Sacred Stegodon Helm. It takes up his entire magic allowance. It's 50 points. It gives him another armor save and +1 leadership.
Yeah.
So you can be 7 cold-blooded, which is when you're like, okay.
That's starting to be meaningful.
Now we're talking, but I think what I would do, he's just, in my experience, he's never been worth it.
Yeah, I think if he had some sort of ability that would specifically bolster other skink units, then that could be cool if you're doing a skink heavy list, or to send him to help with some skirmishers that are going to outflank or go attack war machines or something. But since he doesn't really have anything specifically better that he does than a Scarvet, I just don't know that it's really worth taking.
Yeah, the problem is the skinks are so good that like
he's not that much better. That they don't
he's
need
really
him.
You pay so many more points. Like you give him a blowpipe and nothing else. This guy costs 63. I could get 10 skinks with blowpipes for less than that.
That's wow. When you put it like that.
Does that make sense? So skinks are amazing. This guy's just so overcosted for what you get. And,
totally agree. Which is disappointing because again, it feels like it would be nice to be able to build a more skink themed list that felt worth it. But I guess that's where the skink priest comes in because they're definitely not a bad choice.
I want to say one thing though. If you were to house rule him, because I think this is one of the things in the list I would change, I would bump up his ballistic skill to 5.
I think that would be totally reasonable. Because that's like what he's trained to do. That's like his
Keep
niche.
his weapon skill at 4. He's not, skinks aren't fighters or whatever. He can be just kind of slightly above average. But make him a good shooter at least. He's the same as a chameleon skink, but he's a hero. Can he be 5? And then maybe he's got a role to play, and you can give him the blowpipe, and at least he's like, okay, he's really accurate with it.
And could be really cool with some of the magical ranged weapons.
Sure, which exist, and it would make those more usable too, because really he's the only guy who can use them. So I would make that change if I was to change something.
I think that sounds cool.
But as you were saying, the priest. Perfect. He's actually, you know what, I'm going to say he's not perfect. He's plagued with having heavens, which is the best lore in the game base, but
it's obviously just limiting. It's not
just limiting.
versatile.
I wish they had life. I don't think life's as good, and most people would probably never take it if you're trying to win anyway. But I think it would be cool. I think it would fit them.
Yeah, even just having the choice would be nice. But it does feel kind of thematic that they're much more limited.
Scout. Just cute.
Yeah, and I think that could be interesting, especially with the feathered cloak with fly.
Yeah.
You could just cause some shenanigans and disrupt the enemy that way.
Yeah, he can ride on, and I should note they can both ride on stegodons, both of these skink heroes.
Yeah, I
I've
love
never
the
done
idea
that.
of that. The sound of a mobile spell casting platform sounds awesome, but I do wonder how often that would be that much better than just a stegodon.
He replaces all crew.
Right, so then they're not throwing their javelins or
You
shooting
lose
their
all
bow.
those attacks.
Yeah.
In the bow, yeah. So it's like, they figured it out in 7th when they brought up the Ark of the Gods or whatever.
Right, that's more spellcasting
and
oriented.
they kind of figured it out later, but it's still really good though. I want to emphasize the Skink Priest is phenomenal. The Cloak of Feathers, kind of a signature, gives him flying. You're going to take one, I would say, almost every game, if not two.
Yeah.
And if you take a Slan Mage Priest, 2 Skink Priests, and a Scarvet,
To just be throwing in more dice to the pool.
you could do a lot with that, man. That's going to be 10 casting dice.
Yeah, and that just feels, again, really thematic and cool that there's these much more limited priests that are attending to the Slan, who's the super powerful demigod level dude.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely think it's a really cool option.
And they have that whole telepathy thing with this priest, so you could have a priest with Cloak of Feathers flying around.
That's true,
and then he's drawing line of sight through your guy who's flying around, so he could be nuking stuff that he can't see.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know, there's a lot of cool stuff. I think almost everything in the hero and lord slot is really good or just solid, except for the chief. Maybe just adjust
the chief
him slightly.
is the one disappointment.
Yeah. Into core, the warriors, Saurus warriors. These are the base guys. They're, I think, amazing.
Yeah, one of the best core units, I think.
Yeah, probably up there. They're expensive at 12 per model, but they have all the things you want.
Yeah, strength and toughness 4 and 2 attacks is so good.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, compare that to Chaos Warriors as a core unit.
Who
and it's
cost
just like,
more.
Yeah.
So now the Chaos guys are going to say, their weapon skill 5, initiative 5. Initiative is the dump stat to have.
Yeah, and most of the time,
You're still faster in great weapons.
Yeah, and weapon skill 5, you're still just mainly hitting on 3s most of the time.
So it's like, I hit on 4s, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that matters. Don't get me wrong. It certainly matters. And 4 is better than 3. I hear it. But these guys are so good. The only thing I don't like about them is that spears cost 2 points per model. Man, oh man, is that such a bad choice in my experience. And I've run spears a lot. Losing the close combat armor save bonus for more points for maybe a few more strength 4 has almost never been worth it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll just say it's never been worth it.
Would it be worth it at one point, or even still not?
I don't know. I would almost say make it a free choice because you're like losing something.
Right.
You're losing the armor save, and armor saves are.
Yeah, I think the fact that you get so many attacks already
Makes
it less worthwhile than on a normal unit that would only have one
spearman
attack.
situation again
Yeah.
with Empire, but instead of it being, your stats are worse and you cost the same, it's your stats, I guess, are better. But, no, they're not even. You're losing armor save. You lose a stat and gain some attacks, but then you also cost, 2 points per model.
2 points is a lot. Yeah.
I just, it's hard. Now, are they so bad that it ruins the list? No. You could totally win games with spears.
And there's still strength 4 attacks.
And there's still strength 4 attacks. If you were to adjust it, I would say you could make those interchangeable. And then that makes spears at least worth having.
Yeah, I think that's
know.
fair.
I think that would be fair. And I'd
be worth trying.
And be worth doing. I would not touch the base guys. I think they're perfect. And again, you can put sacred spawnings on them. So if you want to make them crazy rare choices, you can do that. Skirmishers, star of the list. They're perfect. They're probably too good.
One more thing about the Saurus Warriors. It's interesting how the spawnings work because the larger the unit, the better it is
value.
because it's efficient that way.
Yeah, it's not per model.
Right. And so something like the spawning of Quetzal that would give them an additional scaly armor save could be really helpful on them with their toughness 4 and that extra armor.
Yeah.
But probably only if you were taking big units of them.
Yeah.
What is like the biggest unit you would ever consider taking? Because I know you've only taken, 20, 24 maybe, but how big would you go?
Okay, that's a good question. I didn't consider. I could see somebody going 25.
5x5.
After that, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Would
could
you
go
ever take that spawning of Quetzal on a 25 strong unit?
100%.
Okay.
I've taken it on a 20 strong unit.
Yeah.
And I loved it because if you're doing it with hand, weapon, and shield, which again is the way to do it, unfortunately, the spears just aren't good. Rules as written. At a 3-up armor save in close combat, you don't see that on units very often outside of dwarves.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really good.
Yeah,
and you're tough 4
paired with tough 4.
So you're
makes them very resilient.
you basically make them into dwarves, but I guess with worse weapon skill. But you hit way
with
harder.
all the extra attacks.
But you hit way harder. So it's like you turn them into dwarves defensively, but there's still lizardmen on the attack. So it's like, oh crap. Yeah, no.
Nice.
I think the armor save one's really good. Tech, I want to be good, but it's probably a win more button because you're already getting 2 attacks each, 3 attacks each on the charge. Yeah, that's really good. But if you're getting the charge with Saurus against most things, you're probably going to win the fight anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
In my experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, in certain cases though, you're going into heavy cav, maybe you want all those attacks because strength 4, you're still going to be bouncing off 2-up.
Yeah, but are you ever going to get the charge on heavy cav?
Probably not. Good point. Yeah, no, I think the best sacred spawning is indeed the armor save one for them.
Yeah.
Like all ranked infantry, it's not about the kills.
Yeah,
it's about surviving and winning through static res, and any way you can make that better.
Totally.
Cool. Any further thoughts? Good question, though. Skinks, I'll just mirror what I said earlier. I think they're the star of the list. They're the skirmishing is so good in this edition.
They have poison. And these guys are so cheap.
They're so cheap.
And you can get so many of them. Yeah. There's no limit, is there?
No. There's no limit. You could and they're cheap, so they can fill up your quote unquote core tax if you want them to. But frankly, you don't feel tax because the core choices in this book are so good. You want to take so much of them. I almost always bring 2 units minimum. I could see people bringing 4. You could go super cloud heavy.
Absolutely.
They screen for you. They're fast at 6 inches.
Yeah, they can just
6.
leave, especially against less
agile,
experienced players, which I have been for most of my time playing.
Fair enough.
It can just scare you, and you just spend the whole game spinning your unit in circles trying to chase them down, and you just never will because they'll always just run behind you again.
If you're listening and you never played against a Lizardman, and you play against a Lizardman player who's played a reasonable amount and knows how skink skirmishers and skirmishers work, they can just do this thing where they'll just run behind you, even if they don't shoot, and then if you're inexperienced, you're going to think, oh crap, he's just going to keep shooting me over and over.
Or get a rear charge.
Rear charge. Oh no. Skink skirmishers are really, really, really bad in melee. They're just going to keep dodging behind you and march block you, which is bad, but it's even worse if you spin around at them.
Right, and then present your rear to the Saurus or the cavalry or the Carnosaur.
They basically make you just make mistakes. They don't make you, but they make you think like, what is the right decision?
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like most of the time the decision is just take a few casualties from their poison shots and just keep marching forward and hope for the best.
At the end of the day, they're not going to actually kill that many, but I've had games though. We played against a lot of beastmen, and I've had games where our group has a Khorne beastman player, and he'll run up with a bunch of Khorne minotaurs and bestigors, and I've had turns where the skirmishers, he's running right up at me, gets real close, and I'll just stand still, double shoot with blowpipes and shoot with jabs, and I've just eviscerated minotaur units because they have no armor because he doesn't take them or whatever, and it's just 6s or wounds. And I've killed 2-3 minotaurs in a turn of shooting, just completely removed a unit. Yeah. And these are 6-point model guys, and these are, I don't know, they do so well.
The poison along with that, again, at that price point, is crazy that they're getting poisoned.
Worth noting too, if you're new, the word of the wise is in your blow piping, don't double shoot if you hit on 7s. If you hit on 7s, you lose poison. So you only ever want to hit on 6s. That's the rule of the game. So if you move and you're shooting at long range, you're going to hit on a 6. Don't double shoot. You want the poison. That's the way to play. don't go for the 20 shots hitting on 7s because you lose the poison.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
just want to put that out there for Lizardmen aspiring players. If you didn't know that, that's the way to do it. Oh, and they can scout for 1 point per model, by the way.
Also
which is
amazing. So many good options
bargain.
Yeah, I think they're susceptible to magic. That's one of the main things that can take them down, but really they're
cheap
resilient
enough
against
that you don't
almost
care.
anything else. Yeah,
Right.
and they're cheap, so it doesn't matter. It means they're not shooting magic missiles at your Saurus.
Right.
So,
So you're honestly happy most of the time. If they're close to a Scar Vet or whoever's your general with better leadership, they're not going to run either with Cold-Blooded.
Yeah.
Leadership 5 Cold-Blooded is, you're
again,
probably
they're so
talking
cheap.
50-50, but you don't care. Yeah, they're so
if
cheap.
you have enough units of them, losing one unit, who cares?
What I'll say finally too on them, because I have a lot of experiences, I think generally speaking, actually Jav and Shield is better. You get a 5-up armor save in close combat, which frankly, if you're in combat with them, things have gone wrong, but it can matter. And Javelin being able to move and shoot with no downside at long or moving and shooting or whatever. You just hit on 4s with poison. That's been pretty good for me in my experience. Blowpipes have 4 extra inches of range, but unless the opponent moves into me or just stands still for some reason and I get to do the perfect I stood still at short range and double shot, Javs have been better for me most of the time. Now you do need to get closer, but if you just flee as a charge reaction, a lot of the time that's totally fine. If you're by your general, you might just rally next turn anyway, and then they fail, and then maybe you set up a count. There's so much you can do.
Skirmishers, like you said, just in 6 in general are really good for their ability to scream, but their ability to get units out of position by fleeing like that.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of options.
I only have good things to say about Skink Skirmishers. In a way, I think they carry the book.
They're really good, and they're honestly one of the most annoying units to play against.
Yes.
So.
If you use them too much, you probably make people upset for sure. Moving into another thing that I think could make people upset, the Jungle Swarm. I've read a lot of stuff online on Lizardmen. This is the most underrated unit in this book, in my opinion. It's expensive, 60 points a base for 5 wound swarm, but their weapon skill 3, 5 attacks, and they have poison, and their movement 5. So they march 10 inches, and they're skirmishers.
So
Again, skirmishers is really good. They can see 360. These guys are nuts.
Yeah.
They will hold up heavy cav for 4 rounds. I have 4 bases painted up. I've taken 2 bases. I've taken 3. I've taken 4. They've been good every time.
Yeah, and the fact that they're multi-wound bases is so nice because you're much more likely to get attacks back as compared to something like flagellants, which you might use in a similar role, but flagellants are less maneuverable. Every time you lose one, you lose an attack. Yeah.
And I literally play them so aggressively. You guys, if you haven't done this yet, you just push them. Literally, you just push them. You march full speed ahead at whatever you want to block. And even if you don't get the charge, you just get as close as possible, make it so hard to charge anything else.
Yeah.
And if they're shooting magic spells at this, I mean, it's like 12 points a wound. It's about as expensive as a Saurus Warrior, but the fact that you're unbreakable is so valuable.
You're not going to panic and flee from that.
And I want to say again, too, weapon skill 3 is so big here because if you go into a unit that is also weapon skill 3, they're hitting you on 4s, and that makes a huge difference. A lot of swarms, I think, some of them anywhere, weapon skill 2, which is big deal because you're getting hit on 3s. These are not.
Yeah, so they will not die as fast. They have the 5 wounds.
And if you're against,
really good.
Yeah, I mentioned Minotaurs before. These guys can just kill Minotaurs. They'll just kill them because you roll 6s, they just taking wounds. There's going to be matchups where you're going to win combat with them.
Yeah,
because you spiked a roll.
Yeah, and I think we've already seen how versatile this army book is because there's a really good speed bump tar pit unit. There's really good skirmishers. There's really good solid core infantry. It's just like every single unit is such a hit that does what it's meant to do so well.
And it's like, what's the dump stat again? Their initiative 1. Like, oh well, you don't care.
Yeah, because again, losing wounds before you get to strike back is not costing you attacks.
Right. A lot of the times it is not. Like you get this into an infantry unit, they're gonna struggle to do 5 wounds to this per turn. And if you got multiple bases, you got 3 bases, they're gonna do maybe 2-3 wounds a turn. In my experience, if there's no hero. And you're going to literally hold them up for 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah, which is amazing. Yeah,
and they might even win combat once. And because they're skirmishers, we've had this. I remember playing against dwarves once where I was just running them at you and to the side, and then eventually you kind of moved up, and I did a thing where I charged you in the front with Crocs, them in your flank.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
And I was done for. There's
And
just
then
no chance. Dwarves need that rank
It's
bonus.
just so hard. I think they're super underrated. If you haven't used them yet, I think you should try them. It's Unbreakable is amazing. And that's what makes them for sure. But and they're skirmishers. They're just so good. And then we'll go into Temple Guard. These are weird because they're 0-1 per slan. So you can't take them if you don't have a slan. But if you have a slan, narratively, in my opinion, you got to take them. Competitively, I bet you some people will say it's better to take Saurus Warriors because Saurus are so good.
Yeah.
And these guys are really expensive. These are 17 points a model without a shield. You got to buy the shield for another point. I think you have to take the shield because they're so expensive. Mm-hmm. So you're talking 18 points per model. What do you get over your typical Saurus? You get one more initiative. Literally doesn't matter. Going from 1 to 2.
You do get the scaly skin, which is worth
it is
20 points with the spawning of Quetzal, I think. So that's something.
You're absolutely right. And you get weapon skill 4 and stubborn. So that's a big deal with Sacred Duty. So it's a lot. And somebody might go on the face of it, oh, that's so good. And I think they are worth it and they're playable. My problem is that I want to be able to use the halberd. And I feel like I never can. Because I'm going down to a 5-up save. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they turn into just really expensive, like, I compare, and maybe this is me because I play vampires, they feel like Graveguard because they're almost unbreakable, right? Yeah. And I want to run Sword and Board with them for that 3-up save.
Right, to make
and you
that
can
even
do
more
that,
so.
but these guys have halberds, and I want to use that Strength 5. I want to do it, but I feel like I'm handicapping myself if I do. And what I want to have happen, and what they did in a later edition was they just gave them light armor because visibly you look at them, they're covered in armor.
Yeah.
And that would give them the kind of great sword thing where they have a 4-up all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like, okay, now I can use my Strength 5 weapon. Now some people might say, well, then they have a 2-up. And you know what? I say, yeah, they're 18 points a model. You can get a 2-up and dwarfs for 13 points. Now, admittedly, they're movement 3. I hear you.
Yeah,
but
one attack and all that. But
for sure. But I feel you. And they're really, and they might be okay. But I wish they had light armor. They don't get in this edition either. They don't have immune to psychology, so fear can break them.
Yeah, which when they're on that size base, you don't have as many. Easy to be outnumbered.
They get that later editions. They don't have that here. They're probably at their weakest incarnation.
Yeah, it does seem weird that they don't because. Well, no, I guess stubborn is the thing you get for your bodyguard
stubborn,
units. So,
yeah. So in later editions, they get stubborn and immune to psychology for Sacred Duty. In this, it's just stubborn. There are some spells if you go light magic on your slan and try to get it. I think that's kind of a cute combo. Light works pretty well with Lizardmen in general too. But I don't know. I think they're playable. They're kind of in that great sword spot for me where they're good enough.
Yeah, but I think totally bad, but
I think they could be improved. And part of the problem is just the other units are so good.
Right. Why would you want to sink all those points? Would you ever take a slan outside of a unit and just float them around solo?
I think if you do, there are plaques for that. You can give them like a 2-up ward.
Yeah,
there's some stuff that you could do. So if you're going to do that, I think you can. You could probably make it
especially
work.
With the line of sight through Skink Priest, it'd be easier to hide.
And you know what? I bet you there's a player who's tried that and thinks it's really good because, again, this is once you start taking a slan, you give them the plaque of TPOC, you give them a BSB, and then you want to take, I don't know, bare minimum 16 Temple Guard, right?
Right.
Or 12 or whatever.
You're like half your points almost.
I literally played a campaign game at the end. It's an 800-point unit. It is just, it's ridiculous. We're talking, it's crazy how expensive this gets so quickly. And I just don't think from a if you're trying to win, like win at all costs, which that's not what I'm advocating for. I just don't think they're quite there. The Source Warrior, they keep the slan can do the same stuff. It's just they're not stubborn. But if you're winning the combats anyway,
right? Yeah, they're good enough to often do that.
You just don't care. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
I love the unit from a lore perspective, though.
Yeah,
they're so cool. These guys are literally the ultimate guardians. Mm-hmm. They're like the secret service for the slan. They take a bullet for him. You know, like anybody targets slan, like no, he like jumps in front, like shoot me first. Like I love it.
Yeah,
so much. But
yeah, it's one of those things you really want to make work, but just doesn't live up to its point.
And again,
cost.
I think they can be. I've frankly, both times I've taken them, I've won. But frankly, I think that's on the strength of the Slan.
Yeah, not
on the
Guard.
strength of the Temple Guard. I think I would have won those games, maybe even more so with just normal Saurus in their place, because I would have saved 6 points per guy, and I could have taken even more skinks.
True.
Or whatever, right?
Another
You know
2
what I
units
mean?
of them, yeah.
So it's one of those things. And then we'll move into special, unless you have any thoughts.
No, that's it.
Saurus Cav. This is a hard one for me, actually. I've had, when we were first starting out, these were kind of like unstoppable, it felt like. I don't know if you remember.
They would smash aside my Empire Knights.
Yeah, they would just add 2 attacks per guy, 3 on the champ when they charge, is strength
plus
5.
vicious cold ones.
Yeah, and the
to
cold
get their
ones are
attacks.
strength 4.
Yeah.
These guys are just maulers. They're like mini Chaos Chosen Knights. It's kind of how they feel to me, because they have so many attacks. The difference is they're a 3-up armor. So these guys are really threatened by stuff like handgunners, because then you're on a 5-up save and you're wounded on 4. So I like that they're that way, though. And they're really expensive. 35 points per guy. And they have stupidity. Now they're leadership 8 cold-blooded. It shouldn't happen.
It's rare, but
it's
could at a critical moment.
It's going to happen at a critical moment. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
They got buffed in later editions to be a 2-up. Honestly, I kind of like that they're a 3-up, because I like that there's a little bit more diversity. I talked about with the skinks being tough too. I like that. I like that not everybody's, this is the heavy cav choice. The heavy cav choice gets a 2-up armor save. I like that the Empire are a 1-up, and that's kind of their thing.
Yeah.
I like that the Saurus cavalry, and when we get to orcs, the boar riders, those are 3-ups. Because, just look at them. They're not as heavily armored, but their bonuses is they're tough 4.
Yeah, and they are vicious on the attack. Their mounts are more fighty.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like that there's a little bit of discrepancy there. Fear, for me, on them is kind of wasted. It can help, but they're too expensive to take in the numbers, in my opinion, to where you're going to auto-break things. Now, do they ever get into combat with small units and auto-break them? I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it's happened to me before, but I'm never planning for it.
Right, yeah.
I'm never building for it. The way I would take them is you go 5 wide, put a Scar Vet on a cold one with them, and these guys will mulch. They're expensive, though. We're talking 250 plus points.
Yeah, it's a pricey unit.
So, good, though. I think they're solid. I wouldn't change anything about them. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts beyond that? Worth noting, their weapon skill 4, so they're like Temple Guard in that respect.
Yeah, which is nice. Yeah, I don't have any additional thoughts.
Okay.
Again, it just expands the versatility of the army list to just have another.
Yeah, they are
option.
a hammer of hammers.
Yeah.
If they get to do what they want to do.
Yeah, and again, in combination with something like the Jungle Swarms, it's a lot easier to get them to do what they want to do, because you have such a really maneuverable, solid anvil unit.
You get these in the flank, you win.
Yeah.
That combat, anyway. And I've had that happen a few times, and if they're in the backfield,
you watch out.
Woe betide.
Yeah, that's, I think, what took out my block of 24 spearmen with the Griffin banner, is you got a flank or rear charge with your Saurus cavalry on them, and then they got no rank bonus, and it was all over.
Yeah, they just absolutely mulch guys.
Yeah.
That was probably like best case scenario for them. And they worth noting, they can have a magic standard. There is one I'm going to point out here, because I don't think I'll bring it up later. I think it's the Banner of Chotek. Let me double check, make sure I'm saying it right. But it's one that basically gives whoever's in the unit, Sun Standard of Chotek, missiles fired at the unit suffer -1 to hit.
That's really helpful for them.
Their weakness is basically strength 4 shooting, really, which is Empire.
Any more of that they can't hit is good.
Yeah, so if you just minus that, sure, cannons are still going to nuke your guys, but that's all heavy cav. You just got to take that. So really, you can mitigate that, but the War Banner's still good on them too, which is good.
That's always a good choice.
Can't go wrong. So really solid unit. Not much more to say. And then we'll go into Croxigors, which I don't know how I feel about them. They're so good in some ways, but at the same time, they're a lot of times to me like not worth it. They never do badly in my games. I feel like I play pretty cagey. I try to screen them, which is, again, part of they have a special rule, skirmish screen. These guys are bred to work with skinks. And if you play them that way, honestly, it works.
Yeah, which is cool.
They can charge through the skinks, and the skinks have a chance to get kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Frankly, you don't care. A lot of times what I find happens, and what happened in our most recent game, is the skinks get charged, as you're setting up your turn charge next turn, you just flee with your skinks.
And then you're just standing there in front of the
Crocs. And then they
Crocs.
fail because maybe they're not going to be able to redirect into the Crocs because they're a little bit farther back, right? And then they fail
because they can be,
forward.
because you can charge 12 inches with the
Yeah,
Crocs.
because they're speed 6. Worth noting, leadership 7 is really good with cold-blooded. It's not as good as the Saurus, which it shouldn't be.
Yeah, but they have the upgraded scaly skin to 4+, which is huge. Causing fear is nice because, again, you may just have a unit that doesn't charge you.
Yeah. They're solid, and strength 7. And they don't care. Initiative 1 doesn't matter because they're great weapons. Strength 7.
So they're just
strength
mulching any armor save.
Yeah, I've gotten them into... This is a game I think I won against Bretonia, actually. I got them to charge, or it was a tie. I forget. But I got to live the dream. I got the Crocs into some knights on the charge, and I killed like 4 knights.
Amazing.
And I think that's the most knights I've ever killed in any round of combat before. And it just felt...
Yeah, they're built for it.
It felt so good. These are your heavy cav mulchers. Mm-hmm. They're weapon skill 3, but so they're going to hit pretty much everything in the game on 4s, which is fine. Not everything, but a lot of stuff. But you're wounded on 2s no matter what it is, pretty much. I mean, there's a few tough 6 stuff, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
You're just mulching guys, and -4. Even 1-up armor saves. You just... Oh, it's disgusting. I don't know. But at the same time, 58 points per model. That's on the high end for monstrous infantry. Trolls are, I think, 50. Don't quote me on that. I have to double check. But
it's somewhere in that vicinity.
It's somewhere in that vicinity, and they have regen and stuff like that, which is really potent.
But also stupidity.
Stupidity, indeed. And
I think ogres are like 48 or something base.
Ogres, I mean, Iron Guts maybe would be a good parallel unit. They're a good deal cheaper than this and fill a similar role. They don't have as good a armor. They don't have as good a strength, but they have like impact hits and stuff. And frankly, for the points cost being less, I'd rather take them a lot of the time. But these guys have enough weird things like the aquatic and skirmish screen that it makes up for it. Totally playable. I don't think they're like amazing, but they're not terrible either. They're fine.
Yeah, they do what they're built to do, and I think they work well with the other units.
Yeah, so. I wouldn't really change them at all. I think they're pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then we'll roll into Cami, Skinks, Chameleons. These are a 0-1 unit, which is probably for the best.
Yeah, because Skink skirmishers are already amazing, and these guys are just even better.
In some ways, I don't think they're as good just because they cost 15. But man, oh man, you take a unit.
Yeah, the extra -1 to hit makes them even harder to deal with, and the fact that they can deploy even closer to the enemy makes them easier to get in range to start harassing things early on.
Yeah, their Chameleons rule has a lot there, but you can deploy out in the open, in front of, like in line of sight, just minimum 12 inches away. So you can go in spots where no other unit can deploy. You can do some silly stuff. It's kind of gross, actually. We've definitely played where Chameleon Skinks in certain matchups literally just are undealable with.
Yeah,
if you're Empire and you don't have like archers
or pistoliers,
and they get behind you, which they can start behind you sometimes, depending on deployment, or to your flank usually.
It just feels like there's nothing you can do.
It's like, well, do I turn to shoot at them, and then I can't even shoot this turn? And then honestly,
I'll probably miss anyways.
And even if I do shoot, I'm hitting on 6s.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they're peppering me with reasonably accurate shooting that has got poison.
Yeah.
Oh, they are a problem.
Are a thorn in the side for sure.
Leadership 6 too, I'm going to point out, which means they're just that much better at holding against a panic check, which could probably definitely happen.
That's what they're susceptible to, I think, is magic, or if you have a unit like Pistoliers in the back line who can get them to panic and run, then that could ruin them because they're close to the table
For
edge,
sure.
But
if you're a Lizardman player and you've got Chameleon Skinks into a spot where they are a problem, and you know that they have a wizard nearby, save your Dispel dice for whatever magic missiles coming these guys' way, because they're tough too, they're going to die.
Yeah.
Fireball on these guys can wipe the unit.
Yep.
No ifs, ands, or buts. That's really their only weakness is magic missiles, really. They're expensive enough to where that might hurt, especially if you don't get a lot done with them early. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But phenomenal. Wouldn't change anything. Pterodons. These guys, I'm curious what you think, because I think you think differently than me. So I'll have you go first.
I think they have a psychological effect that, again, when I was less experienced, is just terrifying when they just show up in your rear and you're just like, what is happening? They're going to destroy my rank bonus, all that jazz.
Yeah.
You've obviously gotten turn 2 charges on my war machines with them before, which is frustrating because it just completely shuts down something that was supposed to be really meaningful for my army. So I think they can be really frustrating. I think they can be really powerful when played well. I think we've never taken them in larger than 3 unit size.
Yeah, I only have 3
They can
model.
have up to 10, which is crazy to think about. But I was
That's
wondering,
true.
Their hit and run rule really only works if they have enough guys to suffer some losses. If you only take 3, you lose 1 guy. That's a panic check, which is not too difficult, again, against magic or something. Last time I ran them, you just shot them with magic and they fled off the table immediately. So they did nothing for me.
Leadership 5 is definitely a...
But if you have enough of them where they can soak up a few hits and then do that hit and run a couple times, if you position them well, I think that, just harrying the flanks or war machine hunting, march blocking, I think they're a really solid unit that, again, just fleshes out the capabilities of this army.
Right. I think they're definitely takeable. I actually think they're one of the weaker units in the list as I've played more and as we've gotten better at the game.
Yeah.
I find what often happens, they don't really break ranks because they're unit strength 1 each. I think maybe we messed that up early on, which created this
feeling that they were more powerful.
Better than they were. But as we've kind of learned that and corrected that, what I find often happens is either they get the charge on something important like a war machine, and these guys are built to do that, by the way. Strength 4 with 3 attacks per guy.
Yeah.
They shred Empire
crewmen,
they're going to just slaughter them.
Yeah.
But against anything more substantial than that, any kind of reasonably ranked unit, they do okay, but
but that's where I think positioning them well and then using them
Yeah.
to help a Saurus unit out when something like that can definitely be helpful.
I think I'm tainted because I've looked at all the rules for Lizardmen over the ages, and these guys get drop rocks later.
Yeah.
And I love that rule. It's so cute. It's
Yeah.
not particularly amazing. It's like a once per game. You fly over somebody, you do D3 strength 4 hits per lizard or per pterodon.
Yeah.
And it's just something they do because, as you've noted, the big thing they like to do is you fly behind, you land, and you throw some jabs and probably do nothing with them. But and then present the psychological aspect of, I'm in your rear, what do? These guys are kind of, unlike, say, my other army, which I've kind of learned with Fellbats, are pretty actively terrible at fighting. These guys are average.
Yeah.
Strength 4 is a big deal. 3 attacks per guy is a big deal.
Yeah, and if you charge in the flank against a unit of like Empire, for example, against toughness 3, they may not even have any attacks back at that point. You're getting the +2 rear attack bonus, even if you don't break ranks. So that can be huge if in cooperation. Again, like most things in 6, you can't just launch them into a giant block on their own.
They'll get annihilated.
But I think if you use them in cooperation with some other units in this list, they're super powerful.
For sure. I think they're definitely playable. I wouldn't really change anything. I think I'm jaded because I want them to have drop rocks here. Hit and run is pretty cute.
I think we just haven't taken them in big enough unit sizes to really be able to see them.
That's true. Maybe I need to get even more pterodons. I keep telling myself I'm done with the lizards, but maybe not. But yeah, I think we're kind of in agreement. They're very balanced, I would say. They're solid.
Yeah.
Nothing amazing, nothing... worth noting, they have the fun dichotomy of movement 2 base. So if you have any sort of magic stuff, if you're in a crazy big game, I don't know, the Skaven's in there, they put the Storm banner out or something, these guys are like the slowest unit in the game.
Completely useless, yeah. So, I think Empire has something that does that, like a horn that...
There's a lot of random magic spells or items or whatever that can just be like... Flyers they have to move with grounded movement and stuff for like Pegasus Knights. They're like, I'm still heavy cav. But these guys are like, I am useless.
Yeah, so waddling around like
that's
penguins.
Kind of cute. I enjoy it. Okay, and then we'll go into rare. I'm going to start with the Stegodon because that's what's up top. I like it a lot, but it's so cool. The model is so cool. It's basically a living chariot that's really tanky. but it is expensive. 235 points.
Yeah, and crap leadership.
Yeah, stubborn. It's given stubborn. Stubborn is wasted on it. Leadership 5, even with cold-blooded. It's just... you're not... I wish, and they fixed this again in later editions, they made it leadership 6 stubborn. I think that kind of fixes the problem I have with it. It's just, you have to combo charge with this. And I know I've made this mistake before when I was a little newer. I've charged this into Spearmen, a unit that I don't think are particularly good. Mauled them, I think on turn 1, did like 4 impact hits and stomped on a bunch and had a few more stabbed by the crew. But they held, and then proceeded to lose the next round of combat due to combat res because I didn't get the impact hits anymore. Right. And then, yeah, I'm a 5 stubborn, but I failed and got ran down by Spearmen or something. Yeah. And it's just like...
Yeah, I think comparing them to a chariot is appropriate, given how they work. Because again,
but they're like a slow chariot. They're 6.
True, yeah. But anything with those kind of impact, I guess they're more resilient maybe than a chariot,
for sure,
which makes up for it some. But anything that's getting the impact hits, yeah, if you're not breaking the unit in a combo charge, like you said, then it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, the giant bow is a complete faff. 90% of the time, it seems to miss. When you hit, be happy. Maybe you'll kill a couple guys.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if it didn't have the -1 to hit for moving, I think it would be a lot better.
You hit on 6s most of the time, in my experience, until you get close. Then you start to hit on 5s.
Yeah, but since you're trying to get into combat anyways with it, it seems weird to put a ranged weapon on.
Yeah, it's cute. Against large targets, it's fun. I did have a game where we shot at a slave giant in a ogre list, and we killed it because it does D3 wounds. So we killed a slave giant once with it, which was cute because it's a large target and you get the +1. So you can't, there's some times where you're like, oh yeah, this did it. It's also immune to panic, so that's kind of good. So
that does help with its low leadership.
Yeah, so you just gotta combo charge it. So it's a unit that needs support to work, or rather it is a supporting unit, maybe would be the way
But
to
again,
put it.
That's one of the fundamental things that I love about 6th edition is there are very few units that really can just be on their own.
Right.
They're built to work with other units in cooperation, which makes for a much more interesting gameplay experience, I think.
Yeah, and I think some people, like, they see the giant Triceratops monster and they want it to just run into the infantry unit, the spearmen, and that's what I wanted in that moment. And yeah, I killed like probably 6 guys or whatever, but you had 3 ranks outnumber in a banner and I didn't, so you lost by like 1 or whatever.
Yeah,
and you passed.
Had a general nearby and maybe a BSB
and
or whatever.
You passed. So then I'm like, oh man, I killed a lot of guys, but then the next turn I kill like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And you might not have even hurt me, but you still won. And it's just like, oh yeah, I can't just like willy-nilly be
launch
stupid,
this in,
you know? And
so I think that's with this system, one of the things that's frustrating for newer players. They see something like a slave giant even, and or the Stegodon, and they think it's just going to be able to alpha strike and wipe stuff out and tank everything.
Yeah.
That's just not the case.
And then when your big unit that didn't even get hurt gets ran down, you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's a feel bad. So you got to kind of recalibrate your expectations.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But it's good. I mean, Terror can just randomly win games.
Yeah.
So, and it's unit strength 8, which is pretty high actually.
Yeah.
So.
And nice for breaking the rank bonuses if you get the flank charge.
There's a lot of good about it. I think it's playable. If you were to do anything, maybe bump the leadership, but it's fine. I don't even think you need to do that. And then we're going to go to the thing that I think the salamanders are approaching broken.
They're like a better mobile Hellblaster volley gun.
Yes. So they don't have quite the range, but the benefits they have over a Hellblaster are quite astounding. So these guys do the unfair thing where they just roll an artillery die and they get that many hits.
Yep.
It's strength 3 -1 armor. And you take 3 of them, because of course you do, because you should.
Yep.
In fact, if you're playing to win and you're playing at 2K, I think you have to take 6 because they're so good. I imagine there's probably some disgusting tournament lists with, I could see 6 salamanders and just clouds of skinks. And then a slan in the middle with a Saurus block
Yeah, that'd be
nuking.
wild.
I can see some pretty gross stuff.
Yeah.
These guys just pick up units. I've had, I don't actually bring them that much because the few times I brought them, they feel sometimes oppressive, but I don't like nerfing units. I wouldn't do that. I think that's kind of an unfun thing at the same time. They're not unbeatable. They're just man, oh man. Like you shoot at light infantry, which are honestly the best kind of infantry. But the problem is as we've talked about in 6th, elite infantry often aren't much tankier. So you shoot these guys at like Phoenix Guard, you might pick up 12 Phoenix Guard, and that's 180 points.
Yeah.
In one shot, in one turn, and that's before the panic check. And then you get into the fact that they're actually good at fighting.
That's the thing, and like that's where again, just better than a Hellblaster volley gun. If it gets charged, it's toast. Right? But if these guys get charged,
my Fellbats,
they're going to
go disrupt it. It's like because the Fellbats might kill the crew of the Hellblaster volley gun and then fear check him out of existence or whatever. But these guys, you charge in, they have 2 attacks base per sally, so decent. Their strength 5. And they got a 5-up armor, too. So
and also cause fear, right?
And cause fear. And, the skink handlers might fight, too. Now, the skinks are pretty bad. You probably want to keep them behind the sallies. But, I don't know.
It's a nice unit. And
they don't have a
65
weakness,
points
really.
each. You can get 2 of them for the price of a Hellblaster. So it's 1 less die, but they're all shooting, whether they misfire or not. It's not like the Hellblaster where you can have to stop shooting.
The thing is their misfire is so much less punishing.
Also that, yeah.
The misfire is cute, and I like it because it's fluffy. It's them eating skink handlers.
Yep.
And if eventually all 9, because again you're going to take 3, if all 9 skink handlers die, that is bad. But I've never seen it happen.
It happened when we played. I took your...
Did we kill all the skinks?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then I took a monster reaction test because we were all confused about, like, do I do that every turn or just the once when it happens?
Were you playing the lizards or were I?
I was.
Oh, goodness. Of course it happens when you're playing the lizards. Cam's the unlucky one, by the way. Sorry. They're really good, though. They're a problem unit, I think, even in that game.
The fact that the misfire is just a blade of wounds get taken off rather than potential explosions or not being allowed to shoot
the whole
next
unit
turn
doesn't
or
die.
whatever. Yeah.
Right? So they're really good.
Agreed. And they're just cool. I mean, there's so many different ways you could model them as well. Obviously, the classic ones look great, but there's a lot of new options as well. You can even just find anything that looks like a little fire-breathing lizard. So you could go all sorts of directions
little baby
with
dragon or something. No, they're really cool. The only weakness I could maybe say is leadership 5. So if you get some magic missiles on them and you cause a panic check.
That's true.
But that's kind of a lot of things. And they're just so good.
Yeah.
Did I mention they skirmish? They skirmish too, so they're
very
hard,
maneuverable.
They're hard to shoot too, and they can move and fire. By the way, these are
nasty boys.
Nasty boys. I actually don't take them a lot because
You want us to still play against?
I do take them occasionally. I only own 3, and I don't think I'm gonna ever get any more. Because 3 is enough oftentimes. And
you don't want to be tempted to take all 6?
I don't want to be tempted to take all 6. Maybe I'll do that someday. I don't know. But they're certainly cool, and I wouldn't look down on somebody for taking 6 necessarily. But every game, I think it would start to wear out its welcome if I was potentially putting out 60 shots of strength 3 armor piercing. Obviously, that doesn't always happen, and I'm sure there's going to be some people, I'm so unlucky, I misfire over and over, or I only roll 2 hits. I'm sure it happens, but I've definitely had just as many rolls where I rolled 28 hits as I have the one where I've done double misfire. And frankly, the ones where I rolled the 28 hits are often far more impactful than the ones where I rolled double misfire.
True.
Which is the problem, or if you want to call it the problem, the good thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So really good unit. Approaching unfair, I think. I wouldn't nerf them because I think that's unfun. Generally, I would rather raise bad units than nerf 2 good ones. That's kind of my philosophy. But if, I don't know, you have a Lizardman player in your group who's insisting on taking 6 every game because he loves the lore for some reason, He loves the lore, air quote. Maybe look at the 7th ed thing where they use templates instead. There's some ways to make them maybe a little more fun.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or raise the point cost by 10 each. Start small. I don't know. You could do some stuff.
And I think there are ways to deal with them. Like you said, magic, I think they are definitely susceptible to. They don't have the best save.
Yeah.
So obviously you have to get through all the skinks first. But
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So really good. And then we'll go into, I guess, were there any magic items that stood out for you?
Yes. The one that stood out the most is the laser gun.
The laser gun.
Yes, Staff of the Lost Sun. So obviously all the lore of the Lizardmen is that the old ones came from outer space and came to the old world, which, you know, you can see how the fan theory of this planet being
like
in the
aliens,
40K universe, came into being. But this whole idea that this is some spacefaring race makes it easy to interpret some of these magic items as, you know, like that Arthur C. Clarke quote of there's no difference between sufficiently advanced technology and magic.
Right.
And so I think this is one of those. It counts as a short bow with strength 5 and 3x multiple shots.
Yeah.
Which sounds like you could just model that onto your skink priest as a cool looking ancient aliens laser gun from beyond the stars. And I think that's really cool because it connects back to that connection with the old ones and makes them feel that more alien race rather than just lizard people that have gained sentience kind of a thing. So I love that as an opportunity for like a cool conversion. No idea if it would be any good, but it's super cool.
I've actually brought it a couple times on a chief for the better ballistic skill of 4, and it's usable. Strength 5 is great, and 3 shots. Is it amazing? Honestly, no. The problem is you're taking a ding to your hit roll by going multiple shots. So even on a chief, who is again the best possible guy you can put this on, you're hitting in close range, not moving, and 4s. So you're gonna hit 2 on average, 1.5. You know. So if the chief was ballistic skill 5, like I kind of advocated for earlier, I think this becomes a lot better.
I totally agree.
And I think that would be totally fair, too, because frankly, a short bow's range is only 16 inches.
Right.
and honestly, Lizardmen don't have a lot of reach out and touch you stuff that isn't just magic.
Yeah.
So it kind of fits the bill. I don't think it's particularly broken, even if he was ballistic skill 5. It's just, I think, more usable.
Yeah.
Because now he's hitting maybe on 3s. I mean, best case scenario, he kills 3 guys. I don't know. I guess you could do some wounds to a monster, maybe, but most monsters are strength or are tough 5 or higher anyway, so you're only wounding them 50% of the time anyway, if not even that. I don't know.
I think it's a fluffy, cool narrative thing. I don't know that it's the best choice to actually take.
I don't think rules is written it's the best choice to take, but if you play around and give the chief BS5, I think this guy, this has a place.
Absolutely.
And I could totally see it being used with him and just and then scouting him up.
Yeah, exactly.
With a bunch of scouted
into some woods or something.
Right.
Wreak havoc
and you could do
on
some
the advancing
cool
enemy.
stuff with this. So totally a neat one there. Oh goodness, what did I lost my note.
I'll do my next one while you're looking.
Okay, I found it. Go ahead. Oh, okay. I was gonna say and we kind of already talked about this. The Cloak of Feathers, to me, is like almost the signature item in the book. I love skinks, as I've already noted.
Do any of your skink priests have the Cloak of Feathers on them?
Yeah, I've got actually 2 that you could argue.
Nice.
There's a lot of skink models that are first party that have feathers on them. There's one in, I don't know what the Age of Sigmar skirmish card game thing is called. What is that called? Underworlds. There's one that came with a bunch of skink units in it and like one old blood. I bought that just for the characters of it, and I just call them skink characters. But there's a guy who's holding like what looks like an orb of darkness.
I remember that guy, yeah.
And he's got a big flowing, I guess you'd call it more of a cape maybe, but he's got a big thing of feathers. And then there's another one from Fantasy who's just got tons of feathers kind of all over him, maybe less of a cloak, but I think it works. It's really almost, it just fits. It's super good too. Just giving fly, it seems fairly costed. It just kind of hits on every level for me. I could see, I think you can make an argument that you take it every game, but at the same time, you don't have to. So I think it's perfect. It doesn't feel oppressive. It's not an auto take. but it's totally justified for its cost and is good. So for me, Cloak of Feathers is a banger.
Yeah, and I like it's just fluffy and fun as well, especially with it modeled on the model.
For sure.
Yeah, my next one was Diadem of Power. I just think it's a really useful utility kind of item to have. Because there's so many times where at the end of your magic phase, you just don't feel like you have enough dice to really cast the last spell that you have available.
Sure.
Or you're at the end of the dispel phase.
And they messed up.
Right, and you just didn't need yours, or you decided like, well, I'll wait and not use them yet, but then they miscast the second spell and you didn't use them.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be, there's been plenty of times where I feel like I've wasted some of my dice, and this just protects you from that.
Yeah, and then makes your next phase better.
Exactly,
So, in an army that already can be
really good in the magic phase.
So, you can just turn that up to 11. Yeah. I agree.
And again, could be modeled as like a cool little ancient alien tech device, you know, a la Stargate or something, where there's this little box that sucks the magical energy into it, and then there's a shoots it back out or something.
For sure.
Yeah.
My next one, I'm bringing up ones kind of already talked about, but the Sacred Stegodon Helm. I really like this. Oh, it's 40 points. Why did I think it was 50? Well, I'll have to correct it. But for most of a Skink Chief's
allotment,
you're giving them +1 armor, which can be combined, and that's not like light armor or whatever. So you can give them a shield and hand weapon. That's a 5 up in CC. Now you're at a 4 up or something.
Yeah.
And again, Keeley +1 leadership. I really like this because I like the idea of somehow running a Skink Chief as my general or whatever. I want to do it. It's kind of, I've tried it once and I don't think it went super well.
Yeah.
But I like the idea. I want it to work. I want to have some kind of combat skink character that's okay. Maybe against Skaven we'll do that.
There you go. That can work out. Be on par with their characters.
Yeah. So,
well, maybe I also want in a campaign for one of my Empire guys to kill that skink chief and take the helmet so that he can have his +1 leadership.
There you go. There you go. That's what you want. Yeah. No, I think it fits. It's good in the game. I think I've got a skink with a big skull like thing on anyway. Nice. So
that's awesome.
It's cool. I like it. I don't know. It just hits for every level for me again. I think it gives a good in-game effect. Maybe a little expensive.
Yeah, I think it is a little expensive for what it does. But if you wanted to make the skink skewed list work, I think it helps do that.
Right. Yeah.
My next one was Blood Statuette of Spite, just because it's hilarious and could deal massive amounts of damage.
Yeah. So there's got to be a closed list for this one.
Yeah, another closed list one. So level 5 bound spell, only one use, but your target takes a toughness test.
Yep.
And if they fail, then they just take a wound, no saves. And then you just keep doing that till they pass one or die. So yeah, you could literally just assassinate, especially low toughness human elf characters.
If you know there's an elf lord or whatever, and he comes in and at the end of your magic phase, they've blown all their dispel dice. You just go, okay, level 5, this goes off. You might just kill their guy.
Yeah, which could be huge. But even taking 1 or 2 wounds off and then you get in combat with them later, you're much more likely to win that challenge now. So, yeah. I don't know how often I would actually take it, but it just seems like it could be...
My problem is it's not guaranteed. I wish it did 1 wound and then they took
do the test. That's true, because they could just pass the first one.
Right, and then you paid 30 points for nothing.
And it's 50-50 even on toughness 3, right? Because it's roll over
That's
under
the problem.
Your toughness.
You're paying 50-50 for a chance to do something.
So really good against Skaven and skink characters.
Yeah, and honestly, elves. Elves are, because you can get lords that are tough 3. So
yeah, that's true. Anyways, I just thought that was a fun one.
It's certainly cool. I think if you were going to change it, I'd say give it at least do 1 wound.
Yeah, the first one free.
Let it kill somebody, and maybe keep it. I don't know. I think that would be fair for 30 points, and they can still dispel it. And it is power level 5, so you could, probably not the best use of it, but you could be like pop it off on a turn where you really need to get off somewhere else. Power level 5 means they probably, if they want to stop, they have to throw 2. And if they want to guarantee for sure, they got to throw 3. Now, they're probably not going to throw 3 if they know what it does, which you should tell them. But they probably do want to stop it, especially if they are an elf, because there is a chance you just kill their character, for sure. A non-zero chance their character just dies. So you could throw that off right at the start.
Yeah,
draw
just
out
siphon off
dispel
some of their dice. Yeah.
And maybe on a certain turn, spelling 30 points to just say, I take away 2 dispel dice.
Yeah, not bad.
Not terrible. So I think there's a place for it. I've already talked about the Charm of the Jaguar Warrior, so I won't put more time there, but I'm going to go to the Rod of the Storm, kind of going with the bound
love that
spell
one.
level
That's
ones.
a really solid choice.
I think this is really decent in a closed list environment. There are certain units that this can just do really well against. It's a 2d6 strength 3 hits or 2d6 strength 4 hits if the unit has an armor save of 4 up or better within 18 inches. And if you take any wounds, it's a panic check.
Yeah.
So,
which that in and of itself has
Yeah.
wreaked havoc amongst my Empire troops.
Indeed. It's there's certain, again, I think of certain elite infantry, like great swords. This can kill a lot of great swords. They've got the 4-up armor save, but they're tough 3.
Yep.
So it's like this perfect
strength,
combination.
the higher strength, really good.
So there's certain units this is really punishing against. It's power level 5, which means even if they have the 1 die at the end when you want to go this off, they're probably not going to stop it. But honestly, you save this for when they don't know.
Yeah.
You save this for the end after they've already stopped your big thing. And then you go, by the way, Rod of the Storm, hopefully pick up some models. I would say it will generally pay for itself, depending on what you're shooting at. 35 points isn't too much, so you got to pick up 5 swordsmen to pay for yourself, and that's not even counting the fact that you're going to make them take a panic check probably. So
yeah, because even if they don't flee off the board, but they just get out of line because they fled and then rallied, that's huge.
Yeah. Only bad thing I would say, air quotes bad, is 18 inches is a little bit low, but it's still fine.
Especially if you've got a flying cloak.
Indeed, and Lizardmen are generally kind of shorter ranged anyway. We've kind of talked about that a little bit. They're this weird, they can be shooting army, really, actually quite potently, but it's really close range shooting. And then the problem is you get just annihilated at that close range, but then they follow it up with solid blocks too. So they can play in almost every phase. I think Empire can too, to an extent, but Lizardmen, I think most people think when they look at them, there's the shooting, there's magic and close combat. I think people will say, Lizardmen on the face of it, it's magic and close combat, but really they can do
with the skirmishers. They can
they can shoot with the sallies. They can shoot. I think that's for me my last one. Do you have another big one you want to point out?
No, those are the 3 I pulled out that I thought were worth mentioning. Sure.
And then did you have any art that stood out to you?
Yes. Page 13.
Page 13.
This one. It's like Empire fighting Lizardmen. Definitely looks like the Empire is a little worse for the wear. It's sort of like a last stand sort of moment where there's a banner still held aloft, but the main guy you can kind of see is firing off his pistol, but he's holding on to a warrior priest or something that looks like he's on his last leg. There's some other guys that are dying in the foreground. There's a stegodon in the background coming around. You can see a temple way back in the mist there. So I think this really gives you a sense of the space, the setting that the Lizardmen are in, while also showcasing some really cool units. You've got pterodons. I think there's a Slan kind of even back there in the background.
This is 5th ed. You look at the Saurus, very less, I don't know how to call it, dragony.
Yeah, but absolutely love it. Again, it's that classic ink style drawing. But this is one of the things that inspired that convoy ambush scenario that I wrote that we played, which was by far one of my favorite scenarios we've ever done.
That was a good one.
Yeah, and so it's very, very narrative driven of how everything worked out and how we made up some special rules and things for that. But it's this type of art that inspires scenarios like that create really awesome gaming experiences. That's one of the things I really love about wargaming in general and Warhammer 6th edition in particular, is that you can do that translation and get from a cool moment of inspiration, which these books are full of, to a really cool gaming outcome.
Right, and the core rules really support that pretty well. For mine, I kind of did a little bit with you. I put number 20, page 25. There's just a picture of a Saurus warrior, just with his hand weapon and shield. And I mean, I know I've been professing my love for skinks, but I love the Saurus too. I think the Lizardmen were, when I was first learning about fantasy, were my army when I was a young boy or whatever, and I was looking at them those look so cool. And I remember looking at the Games Workshop website in 2007 and being man, I can't afford any of this because I'm 14 or whatever. and thinking like, man, I need to buy 2 boxes of this one thing just to have one unit. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. But I've always liked dinosaurs as a kid, and I think this for me just it really sells his vibe. He's how he's just even holding himself.
Yeah, he's kind of in like a loping run.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something, the head's chained to or attached to the shield. I don't know. This is just what a Saurus is to me. I know they've recently gotten new models, and they're a little bit more like human-like. There's a word for that, anthropomorphic. Yeah. I'm trying to think of it, but they're a little more. They have like human chests and stuff, like pecs and things. And these lizardmen are kind of in between. Like the 5th ed lizardmen are really lizardy and kind of haunched and whatever. These guys are still haunched, but they're a little more human-like, and I kind of like this in-between where they're at here, and that piece of picture really just sells me on what they are and who they are. The tail seems really agile and able to flex. It's not just stiff.
Yeah.
I really like that art. It kind of takes me in as who these things are. Honestly, the page on the next bit with 26 with the skink is also excellent.
There's so much good art in this book. It was hard to pick. And a lot of good photography, too, of the armies and the awesome jungle terrain.
Yeah, they're in the showcase, that Slan one.
Oh, man, so good, with the crew just running for their lives.
Yeah, I love that. And there's like some chameleon skinks hiding blowpipes and stuff. Yeah, no, there's some good stuff. Overall, I think Lizardmen, again, we kind of came out saying this, I think they're probably the best starter army for my money.
I think they just have... like you said, they play every phase. They have an option that kind of covers every type of way that you would play the game with different armies. So you can learn a lot of different approaches with fast units, slow, solid blocks, skirmishers. Sure. Yeah. It's really flexible. I think for me, the hard part with Lizardmen is just choosing what not to take, because all the options are cool, even if not amazing.
Yeah.
But most of them are also amazing. So it's just like, it's hard to limit myself. It's like I want to take one of everything, but you can't afford it.
Yeah, that's the thing. They are a little more elite. They're definitely, because I mean, skinks are cheap, no doubt, but so you can fill up with those. But if you're taking a Slan and a unit to go with the Slan, you're taking up half or at minimum a quarter of your force for one unit. So they fill up very fast. It's usually not an issue of slots. It's like the Empire has, I think.
Right, yeah, they run out of slots.
Right, where the Empire's like, man, I can't even fit in this unit, the mortar I can't even take because I want to take all these other special things, you know. This, it's like, nah, my units are all pretty expensive, so I'm going to fill up before that's even a problem. And the core is so good in this that you can
spend all your points on that and still feel like you had a good army. You can spend your points
on core. I don't feel like I've ever hit the limit on special in this really ever.
Yeah.
Rare, honestly, I guess I always do because we play a lot of sub 2K still, as we do like slow grower leagues. And I guess if you only have one choice, I hit the limit. But I like that though. So I don't know. Really good army overall. I would put them probably the best starter army. And honestly, they reward learning them too.
Absolutely.
I played them probably more than any other army because they were my first, I guess. And I still enjoy playing them. I didn't get bored. There's some cool extra units. We brought in the, what is it? They bring it in 7th, where it's that magic thing on the Howdah for the Stegodon, the Arc or whatever. But there's an Arcanodon in 6th ed in one of the expansion books. I think you could totally just bring that in. That's what we've done, kind of narratively, as another rare option. It's basically just a movable stone thrower with magic and flaming attacks, which is cool. It's not outrageously OP or anything. And in fact, I think it's actually worse than the normal Stegodon. But it's cool and another option, and it's there. And it's balanced for 6th, in my opinion. I think it's very good. There's a lot to love here, and a lot to love painting. If you think you would like it, I don't know.
Yeah, the models are super cool. You can do all sorts of different color schemes that are going to look good.
Yeah.
It's hard to go wrong.
Right.
I think the one caveat with this army is just knowing how powerful it can be in the magic phase is just something to keep in mind when you're deciding. And, we've said this before, but a lot of times we'll work together to build army lists just to try to make something that we know is going to feel balanced for both players since we're typically doing more friendly casual games.
Right.
So I think that's just something to be aware of, is knowing that
Right.
if you're not as familiar with everybody else's armies, just know that if you're going really hard on magic, you might just be
if you're bringing a
wrecking
Slan
people.
and double priest, just know you're gonna have a lot going on for yourself. And if the opponent is running Empire with a battle priest and then a bunch of captains, and he's trying to, I don't know, do something with that, and they may have a bad time as you throw lots of magic missiles their way.
Yeah, and it's good just to be aware of, and not that the Empire could never win that matchup, but it would just take a really good opponent and some good dice rolling for that.
For
to
sure,
probably happen.
magic can definitely feel very one-sided. So if you invest in it, because when you invest in it, you're not only getting offense, you're getting defense. Is the thing. In the Slan, again, having a +1 to both cast and dispel. And that's where, if you're fighting this army that's really heavily magic skewed, it almost isn't even worth bringing any magic unless you're really going to go after it. I guess you're right. I guess my example was poor. What would be bad is if you got a Slan and double priest, and then the Empire player brings 2 battle wizards level 2.
Yeah.
Because then they've invested 200 points, maybe more.
But not enough to ever get a spell cast, maybe they can dispel 1 or 2 of yours.
Maybe they get a spell off every so often, but they're not gonna, on average, very much.
Yeah, so it's just something to keep in mind, again, if you're playing friendly games, keeping it casual kind of a thing. And we'll talk more about that when we do an episode where we're actually building some lists that we're going to play against each other, and we can explore that some more. But thought that's worth mentioning.
I think they can play down, though. Do you think they can't play down? I think they can play down. You could go like pretty hokey with this if you take some
absolutely
silly stuff.
This army is by no means always overpowered, and I don't even think when you go magic heavy it is. It just can create some skewed matchups.
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't by any means think it's unstoppable.
I don't even think it's. Final thought, and we didn't do this with Empire. Where do you rate this army out of like the main 14 books? Would you say it's top 5? Just off the cuff.
Just from my experience, yes, I would put it in the top 5.
Okay. I think I put it either at the bottom of the top 5 or just below that at like 6.
Yeah.
I just
think their flexibility, the fact that almost all their units are good options, and the reliability of cold-blooded really keeps them up there.
If they didn't have cold-blooded, this book would be so much worse.
Absolutely.
But it's such a good special rule, and at times it feels like they don't pay for it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the thing about it.
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning just that the Southlands list at the end of this book is really cool. It's also like okayed for tournament play or whatever. Like you don't need your opponent's permission is how they word it.
Sure.
But it's just a wildly different list. You get totally new units, skink cohorts, which are ranked up skinks, and you get horned one riders, which are like skink cold one riders, but slightly different. And so I think it'd just be a really cool, fluffy list. And even if you had an entire Lizardmen army, you could feel like you were building a completely new army by doing that. So I would love to see it someday. I don't think I'm ever going to do it, but I just love that stuff exists.
Yeah. I think I want to do something like this. I will be honest. I'm not in love with the list. I think it's kind of poor, but I do love me.
It's probably why it's legal, because I don't think the skink cohorts would really be that good. But they are super cheap.
They are very cheap. They have the problem of, tough 2, weapon skill 2, core infantry.
But think about how many blocks of 24 skink warriors you could have.
Indeed. If you could do the thing that they do in later editions and possibly even prior, I haven't looked at the 5th ed book much, where you could put crocs in there and they swing over. I love that.
That would definitely make them a better unit.
Here's a question. Would you think that it's totally just fair if somebody didn't want to play the Southlands list? Would you have any issue with somebody just saying, I want to bring skink cohorts as core?
I absolutely wouldn't.
I don't think I
don't think
either.
they're that good.
Yeah, I don't think they're that good either. I think that would be totally cool.
Horned one riders are fast cav, I think. So I think that would maybe be an extra level of flexibility.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see that.
That they don't need, but it honestly would probably be fine.
Yeah, I don't even know. You can give them spawning a Sotek, I guess, is cute. I don't know. But yeah, no, I was just curious what your take was on that. So
in general, as a war gamer, I'm pretty open to people just doing what they think would be cool, because if I can tell that you're the type of person that's doing it because you think it's going to annihilate me, I just wouldn't be playing with you in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty
Fair.
open to just saying like, yeah, you think that's cool? Let's try it.
I would say, like, if you're listening to this and you like the idea of the skin cohorts, or maybe you played 8th edition and you're like, oh, I could do that and I liked it. I think using the unit in the back of this book is totally acceptable. I don't think they're particularly strong or overpowered. They're just another option of cheap ranked infantry that, frankly, this book doesn't have otherwise. So that might give you something different that would be interesting.
Yeah, just to shake things up.
So, yeah. And the Hornwood Riders, I don't see why not trying it at least. They don't look particularly crazy. They are still weapon skill 2. But tough 4 on the Horn one, although that doesn't matter in this edition. It's just the rider's toughness, isn't it? So tough 2. So these guys will die to a stiff breeze. I would say give it a shot. I'd be curious to see how it works. They cause fear and they're fast cab, but tough 2 fast cab. That'd be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I almost want to try it now. But
and it's just a cool, again, another modeling opportunity to do skink riders, which there are, of course, now models for, but you can customize some of your own and things like that. But yeah, absolutely love it. I think it's a solid list. I think it's a lot of fun to play.
I think one of the better books that 6th came out with, actually. I think it's, obviously, I think the Salamanders are a bit of an outlier. But other than them,
it feels pretty
I don't
tight.
know what I would, and the Chief is a little on the other side, kind of bad or whatever. But other than those 2 things, I feel like this came out almost flawlessly. Really good. Nothing I would really change. I think you could do far worse, and I think GW has. So, really good book. Only positive things to say. I think if you're curious about 6th edition and you don't know where to start, I think this is the place to look.
It's a great option.
So, yeah. Okay, on and upward to the next. What do you think you want to talk about next? Maybe we'll ask our audience.
Yeah, we'll see if they have ideas, but I think it might be cool to just do an episode where we build lists together with the 2 books we've talked about so far, Empire and Lizardmen. Yeah. And then maybe play a battle with those lists and then do a debrief kind of after action report and talk about how it went. Because that way we can get into a little bit of just our approach to that collaborative list building. Right. Maybe we can be inspired and do another custom scenario or something based on some artwork in there, just do that ambush scenario again or something.
I'd love to.
But yeah, I think that could be fun.
Okay, well, until next time, everybody, this has been Refuse Flank. I'm Grant.
And I'm Cam.
Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.